I just want to do a quick video talking about removing the leaf springs from this and what we had to do to remove some of the pins to get the leaf spring out and just some of the problems we went through. The main reason this came apart is we had to go in here and put in some shims that change the angle of the rear end. We tried to do that with the rear end in place, but these bolts were absolutely seized into place. So we realized the leaf spring needed to come out. The leaf spring had a ton of play in it. It was rocking back and forth. A lot of the bushings here on the passenger side were shot. So this is a 1948 F-1 truck. The truck is kind of a combination of parts. It's a like 52 cab, 49 engine, 48 grille, I believe 49 bed. I'm not 100% sure exactly what year frame this is, but you know, 48 to 52. And some of these things might apply to the newer after 52 trucks. Or there's pins that hold the leaf springs in. There's the one in the front, and then here are the two in the rear. So here's like a shackle, and it has its own pin that holds the leaf spring, and then that shackle comes up into the frame mount. So the goal is there's a cross pin in here. You can see it right there, there's a cross pin. You unbolt that, and you have to punch that pin through the back side and remove it, and then you can pull these other pins out of the front. So this is a grease fitting, you can remove those. And see, here's the back side. There's the back side of where the cross pin would be. So on the opposite side, it looks just like this. So you got to take the nut off. Once that's off, you can hammer it out. Here's one of the pins really quick. And you can kind of see the wear in it, where it wore down over time, and this would explain some of the, you know, the looseness in it. But there's a groove right there. You'll see it in between my thumbs. There's a groove, and that's what holds this cross, or the cross pin slides into that, and that's what holds this pin in. So the cross pin also has a little groove part that sticks out on one side, and that is what's supposed to slide in to this notch. So you basically slide the two notches in. So when this is in, you got to make sure that the groove is face down and that this notch is faced up towards the groove. So when you reinstall it and you hammer it back in, it's going to go correctly into place. Then you can bolt it back in and that'll hold it. So but that's the goal. When you first take it apart, you got to take the nut off this cross pin, press that out, hammer it out, and then you got to press or hammer these out. Okay, so here's the back again. So you want to undo these bolts and then push that out, hammer it out, and then so just like the top, it'll come out of the back side and you can pull it. And once that's out, you can press these pins out. Now this pin you could possibly get out later. That's what we did. So we just took the ones out from the frame at first. And there's basically three ways to get these out from the frame. You either have to use some sort of tool, like a puller tool. You have to hammer it from behind and beat it out. Or you can grind the rivets off these mounts. And then once it's out, then you could possibly press it out or hammer it also. We originally had the bed on when we did this, and I was able to get 3 of these out, but the last one was fighting me. Before we ended up grinding one of these mounts off, we went ahead and took the bed off, and then that gave me a little more leverage and maybe a little better angle to where I was able to hit it off or pound it out. So the tool is something like this. Basically this bolt can be any size. Just needs to be a heavy duty grade 8 bolt. And then the people, what they'll do is they'll, it needs to be a larger bolt. But what they'll go ahead and do is grind this down and then re-thread it so it fits inside of the pin. Because when you take out this grease fitting, there's threads in there. Re-thread the end of the bolt and you can put it in. This one I made by, I got another bolt and I went ahead and welded the bolt onto the end of this one. So, and we didn't do this until I got to the very last one that was extremely stuck. Thinking, okay, maybe we need to go at it from the other side. And it didn't work. It stripped this out. So I don't know if this bolt wasn't strong enough, but after that is when we decided to take the bed off and try it one more time. This, I would say, is an okay option if you think your truck isn't all rusty and crusty and maybe the pins have been out like in your lifetime. Like you remember the pins being out of this so they aren't seized in there. I believe the pins in this truck were the originals from when it was made, possibly. So they were stuck in there pretty good. Plus still, this is a little hard to use with the fender on again. Personally, I recommend taking the bed off after doing it this way. I think the bed should come off. Okay, so this is option one. It doesn't hurt, maybe an hour or two to make something like this, if you're lucky. I wasn't really a fan of trying to grind this down and then making rethreading it. So the bolt worked, but you know, some people might have some better luck. But the idea is, say this is on the bolted into the pin. Once this is bolted into the pin, you tighten this down and then this socket will pull and pull and pull and theoretically pull it out once you tighten it more. So just a standard like puller tool. All right, the second option is to go ahead and grind these rivets and take the mounts off, and then you could possibly get this whole setup under a press, you know, just be able to get to work on it easier. Both my dad and I agreed, you know, the truck's so old, it's kind of cool to just leave as much original stuff on it as possible, so leaving the rivets on was kind of a goal. So in my opinion, the best option is to use a drift and a hammer to get these out, or an air hammer. The air hammer actually does a pretty decent job if you can get extensions on it, so you can use like a larger drift like this. We kind of jerry-rigged a socket between an air hammer tip and these drifts, so we could actually put these drifts connected to the air hammer. But it's kind of hard to see, but back here there's a hole where you can get to the back pin, and so there's a hole right behind here in the frame. And I believe on some of the newer trucks the holes are already drilled. This one, the hole is already drilled for the back one, but for the front one there is no hole drilled. So you can kind of see right here, this is the back of the cross member behind the mount. So there's the mount. I had to drill a hole right there in the back of the cross member to be able to get into that pin. The hole could have been in a little better spot maybe. There's the back one, so you can see the hole. Even the hole for the back one isn't lined up perfectly. Once you put the drift in, you might have to go at an angle to be able to hammer it out. So this drift came from mid-50s, and this is just one we had laying around, and this one actually got stuck, and the narrower one kind of helped out too. So they both kind of to each their own worked. And this was the one that I couldn't get out. It was the last one that was stuck. And so to give you an example, you know, the drift has to come in and then go, and there's already a hole in the frame, but this cross member's in the way, so you have to drill the hole in the cross member. And then had to get it on the pin and hit it on. But you can see it's at a little bit of an angle. I should have drilled up the hole a little higher. But in my opinion, for the sake of just getting it done quick, you know, remove the bed, get a couple drifts, drill your holes in the front cross member, and just hammer those pins out with an air hammer and sledgehammer. Just get it done. The other thing is this pin that holds the leaf spring together was completely seized, and we had to get that out to put in the shim pieces. Again, we tried putting this in a press, and these are new pins, but we tried putting the old one in a press and it didn't work. The only way I could get it out was literally beating on it with a sledgehammer. Finally got them to come out. But in the process, out of the bottom three leaves, it broke the two up. It didn't break the very bottom leaf, but it broke the next two up. So I broke the same two on each side, popping it out. Adding the shim kind of made up for the missing leaf. You know, and here's just a look at the front, you know, same thing. Here's the bolt that needs to come out, pop that pin out, drill your hole, get the drift, hammer that pin out from behind. And then getting these back together can be kind of troublesome. What I was doing was getting it to where I had a hole shot. I got the pin to go in, and then I would rock the pin until I felt it kind of seat on the other side where it wants to go in, and then I would tap it in with a hammer. And that method started to work pretty good. So get it to, because once you get this in here, the spring gets really stiff, and it wants to fight. It wants to fight everything going back together. So again, once you can get the pin in, the spring lined up and the pin in the majority of the way, you know, just feed the pin until you feel a bite the opposing hole in the bracket and then go ahead and tap it in. Otherwise, because it should go in pretty smooth. If you're having to, you know, really beat on it, sometimes the first pin was a little hard to get in, but especially the second one, if you're having to beat on it, it's probably not going in right. It needs to be lined up a little better. In my opinion, take the bed off, drill your holes in the front cross member. And I believe in some of the later trucks, like after 52, some of those trucks might already have holes drilled up front, because I've seen instruction sheets. I've seen instruction sheets that said that the holes were already drilled where this one didn't have it. So you can do it without the bed on, but it might just might be worthwhile, make a deal out of it, take the bed off, clean stuff up, go ahead and rip all this stuff together. It's just a little nicer to do it that way, but it can be done the other way. It's just slightly more of a hassle. So, all right, and if you guys have any questions about this, or you get stuck on something, or have any other questions about any of the other videos or anything I'm doing, just go ahead and contact me through the website, desertratracer.com, or just comment on the video, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as possible. All right, bye.